The desperate Cal opening scene. The Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime buzzed with panic. Ambassador Kale of the peaceful Viridian species stood before the assembled delegates, his blue-scaled hands trembling as he held a data crystal containing footage of his homeworld's destruction. The massive viewscreen displayed scenes of horror, entire cities reduced to ash, forests burning for miles, and millions of his people fleeing in terror from an unstoppable enemy force known as the Devourers. These mechanical beings consumed everything in their path, leaving only dead worlds behind. "We have lost 12 systems in 3 months, Kale announced, his voice breaking. "Our military forces are no match for their technology. They adapt to every weapon we use against them within hours." The council erupted in worried murmurs. The Altarians, known for their advanced shields, had already fallen. The warrior race of Brutans, famous across the galaxy for their strength, had been crushed in mere days. Even the tech-savvy Nexari couldn't slow the Devourer advance. Elder Mira of the Ancient Wisdom Keepers spoke first. "Perhaps we should consider evacuation protocols. Abandon the outer rim entirely and fortify the core worlds." "Impossible," replied General Voss of the United Defense Force. "At their current rate of expansion, they'll reach the Galactic Center within 2 years. There's nowhere to run." Ambassador Kale stepped forward again. "There is one option we haven't considered. The humans." The chamber fell silent. Many delegates exchanged glances of uncertainty. Humanity was still relatively new to galactic politics, having joined the Council only 50 years ago. Most species viewed them as primitive, barely past their atomic age when first contact occurred. "The humans?" scoffed Councillor Wren of the Aquatic Federation. "They've never faced anything like this. Their weapons are crude, their ships are slow, and they lack the advanced technology of older civilizations." But Kale had done his research. Their military history suggests otherwise. They've been fighting wars for thousands of years, often against impossible odds. They have something most of us lack: experience with total warfare. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity was too young, too inexperienced with galactic threats. Others worried about their aggressive nature, fearing they might become as dangerous as the Devourers themselves. Finally, Elder Mira called for silence. "We are running out of options and time. If the humans are willing to help, we should at least hear their proposal." The decision was made. An emergency transmission would be sent to Earth, requesting immediate military assistance. The message would include all available data on Devourer tactics, technology, and the scale of destruction they had caused. On Earth, Admiral Jack Morrison sat in his office at Global Defense Command when the encrypted alien transmission arrived. He had expected another routine diplomatic message, but as he read the contents, his expression grew grim. The footage attached to the message showed devastation beyond anything humanity had witnessed since their own world wars. Entire planets, stripped bare, populations in the billions simply gone, and mechanical armies that seemed unstoppable. Morrison immediately called an emergency meeting with the Joint Chiefs and President Williams. The room was tense as they reviewed the alien request for aid. "They're asking us to fight a war that their most advanced civilizations couldn't win," said General Hayes, Chief of Army Operations. "What makes them think we can succeed where they failed?" "Because we fight differently," Morrison replied, studying the tactical data. "Look at their battle reports. Every species fought defensively, trying to protect their worlds while being slowly overwhelmed. They're thinking like civilized beings protecting their homes." President Williams leaned forward. "And how would we approach it differently?" Morrison's eyes hardened. "We take the fight to them. We don't wait for them to come to us. We hunt them down and destroy them wherever we find them. Total warfare, something these peaceful civilizations have never truly understood." The president was quiet for a long moment, considering the massive responsibility being placed on humanity's shoulders. Finally, she spoke. "Admiral, prepare our fleets. If these aliens need our help, they'll get it. But we do this our way." Conclusion of Part 1. As news of the alien crisis spread through human military channels, something awakened in humanity that had been dormant since their last global conflict. Not just the desire to help, but the recognition that this was exactly the kind of war they had been preparing for their entire history. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare. The Devourers had faced civilized resistance. Now they would face humanity unleashed. Humanity mobilizes Earth's response. Within 48 hours of receiving the alien distress call, every major human military installation buzzed with activity. President Williams had declared a state of galactic emergency, and the response was swift and massive. Admiral Morrison stood in the war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing Earth's military assets. "We're looking at the largest mobilization in human history," he announced to the assembled commanders. "Every available ship, every trained soldier, every weapon system we have." General Hayes pulled up deployment charts. "The aliens have given us detailed maps of Devourer positions. They control a corridor stretching across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. That's roughly 200 systems under their control." "What's our timeline?" asked Colonel Reed, commander of the Elite Strike Corps. "The Devourers are advancing on multiple fronts," Morrison replied. "Intelligence suggests they'll reach the core worlds within 18 months. We need to stop their advance and then push them back." But humanity's approach would be radically different from previous alien strategies. Where other species had tried to defend specific worlds, humans planned to attack the enemy's supply lines, command structures, and staging areas simultaneously. The fleet assembles. At Luna Base, the largest human fleet ever assembled took shape. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, and support vessels numbering in the thousands. But these weren't just military ships. Humanity had also converted cargo vessels, mining ships, and even passenger liners into weapons of war. Captain Maria Santos walked through the hangar bay of the flagship Defiance, watching as technicians loaded experimental weapons designed specifically for fighting the Devourers. Human engineers had studied the alien combat data and developed new strategies. "The aliens fought with honor and followed rules of engagement," she explained to her senior staff. "They tried to minimize casualties and protect civilian populations. Noble, but ineffective against an enemy that shows no mercy." "Lieutenant Commander," Brown nodded grimly. "And our approach? We hit them everywhere at once. No rules, no mercy, no retreat. We make them afraid to advance because they'll never know where we'll strike next. New weapons, old tactics." Dr. Angela Price led the weapons development team that had worked around the clock to create anti-Devourer technology. In her laboratory, she demonstrated their breakthrough discovery. "The Devourers adapt to energy weapons quickly," she explained, "but they have trouble with kinetic projectiles moving at extreme velocities. We've developed railguns that fire depleted uranium rounds at significant fractions of light speed. The weapons were brutal in their simplicity. No fancy energy shields could stop a chunk of metal moving at relativistic speeds. Combined with nuclear warheads and experimental plasma bombs, humanity's arsenal was designed for maximum destruction. But the real advantage was tactical. Human military doctrine emphasized speed, surprise, and overwhelming force applied at the enemy's weakest points. Instead of fighting pitched battles for individual worlds, they would strike fast and disappear before the Devourers could adapt. First contact with galactic forces. Ambassador Kale arrived at Luna Base to coordinate joint operations. He was shocked by what he found. Humans preparing for total war with a efficiency and brutality that made him uncomfortable. "Your military preparations are extensive," he observed, watching human soldiers training in zero-gravity combat. Admiral Morrison walked beside him through the bustling base. "Ambassador, your people and their allies fought to defend. We're going to fight to destroy. There's a difference. But surely you'll coordinate with our remaining forces, follow established galactic warfare protocols?" Morrison stopped and faced the alien diplomat. "With respect, Ambassador, your protocols got you nearly wiped out. We appreciate your intelligence data, but we'll handle the fighting our way." Kyle was disturbed by humanity's cold efficiency, but he couldn't argue with their logic. Traditional galactic warfare had failed completely against the Devourers. The strategy unfolds. In the final War Council meeting, Morrison outlined humanity's battle plan to his commanders. The strategy was ambitious and dangerous. Phase 1. We establish forward bases in neutral systems and begin hit-and-run attacks on Devourer supply lines. Phase 2. Once we've disrupted their logistics, we launch coordinated strikes on their command ships. Phase 3. We systematically destroy every Devourer installation, ship, and factory we can find. General Hayes raised a concern. This plan requires us to operate far from Earth with limited support. If something goes wrong, then we adapt and keep fighting, Morrison replied. That's what humans do. We don't give up, we don't retreat, and we don't lose. First strike, the hunt begins. 3 weeks after leaving Earth, the human fleet reached the outer edge of Devourer territory. Unlike previous alien forces that announced their presence and demanded surrender, the humans arrived in complete silence. Admiral Morrison commanded the operation from the bridge of the Defiance. Around him, tactical displays showed Devourer positions across dozens of star systems. The enemy had grown confident after months of easy victories. Their formations spread thin across conquered worlds. Target confirmed, reported Captain Santos from her scout ship. Devourer supply convoy, 12 vessels, minimal escort. They're following a predictable route between mining operations. This was exactly what Morrison had hoped for. The Devourers had become predictable, following efficient logistics patterns that worked well against defensive opponents but left them vulnerable to ambush tactics. All units, this is Admiral Morrison. Execute strike pattern Alpha. Remember, hit hard, hit fast, and leave nothing behind. Ambush at Kepler 442. The Devourer supply convoy moved through space with mechanical precision, their ships loaded with resources stripped from conquered worlds. They had detected no threats in this sector for months. The first sign of trouble was when their lead escort simply vanished in a brilliant flash of light. Captain Tom Baker's destroyer had fired a relativistic kill vehicle. A tungsten rod accelerated to 30% of light speed. The Devourer ship's shields meant nothing against solid matter moving that fast. Before the Devourers could react, the human fleet materialized from behind asteroids and debris fields where they had been hiding. Nuclear missiles, plasma torpedoes, and railgun rounds filled space with deadly energy. Multiple contacts, unknown weapon signatures. The Devourer machines tried to adapt their shields, but human weapons were too diverse, too primitive, and too brutal for their sophisticated systems to counter quickly. In 17 minutes, the entire convoy was destroyed. The humans salvaged what they could, planted sensor drones to monitor Devourer response, and vanished back into the asteroid field. The Devourers adapt. On the machine homeworld of Terminus Prime, the Devourer Central Command analyzed the attack. Data. For the first time in their expansion, they had encountered tactics they didn't understand. The attackers used projectile weapons that their energy shields couldn't stop. They struck from ambush positions and retreated before counterattacks could be organized. Most disturbing of all, they showed no interest in claiming territory or protecting installations. Devourer Command issued new directives: increase escort sizes, vary convoy routes, and prepare defensive formations for hit-and-run tactics. But they were adapting to fight the last battle, not understanding that humans were already planning the next phase. Escalation. Over the next month, human strike teams hit 17 different Devourer operations. Mining stations, supply depots, communication relays, and transport ships, all destroyed with ruthless efficiency. The attacks followed no pattern the Devourers could predict. Sometimes humans used overwhelming firepower to destroy heavily defended positions. Other times they sent small teams to sabotage critical systems. They mined hyperspace lanes, destroyed orbital facilities, and even rammed damaged ships into Devourer installations as final attacks. Lieutenant Commander Brown led one such mission against a Devourer communication hub. His team's ship had been badly damaged in the attack, engines failing and hull breached in multiple places. "Sir, we can't escape. Devourer reinforcements will be here in 10 minutes. Brown looked at the massive enemy station, still partially functional despite their assault. Then we make sure they can't use it either. Set collision course and arm all remaining nuclear warheads. The sacrifice of Brown's crew destroyed the communication hub completely, cutting off Devourer coordination across an entire sector. It was a trade the humans were willing to make. 1 ship and 50 lives for a strategic advantage that would save thousands. Psychological warfare. What the Devourers didn't understand was that they were facing an enemy that had learned to wage total war not just with weapons but with fear and uncertainty. Captain Santos led a raid that specifically targeted Devourer manufacturing worlds. Instead of trying to hold territory, her forces destroyed everything of value and left behind messages in the machine language. You are not safe anywhere. We are coming for all of you. The psychological impact was significant. For the first time, Devourer forces began to hesitate, to look over their shoulders, to expect attack from any direction. Their efficient expansion slowed as they diverted resources to defense. The Galaxy Watches. News of human successes spread quickly through the remaining free worlds. Species that had given up hope began to believe that the Devourers could be stopped, but Ambassador Kale watched the reports with growing concern. Human tactics were effective, but they were also ruthless beyond anything the galaxy had seen. He wondered if they were trading one unstoppable force for another. Total war, the Devourers strike back. After months of harassment attacks, the Devourer Central Command finally understood they faced a different kind of enemy. Their response was swift and merciless, a massive counteroffensive aimed at human forward bases. Admiral Morrison received the alert while reviewing battle reports. Sir, we're detecting massive Devourer fleet movements, at least 300 ships converging, on our Sigma base. The base held 2,000 human personnel and served as a critical supply depot for ongoing operations. Traditional military thinking would demand its defense at all costs. Morrison's response surprised his staff. Order immediate evacuation of Sigma base. All personnel and equipment to be withdrawn within 6 hours. Sir, we're just going to abandon it? Morrison studied the tactical display showing the approaching Devourer fleet. We're not abandoning it. We're turning it into a trap. The Sigma base gambit. As the last human transport lifted off from Sigma base, Chief Engineer Roberts finished his final preparations. Every fuel depot, ammunition storage, and power generator had been rigged with explosives and set to overload simultaneously. The approaching Devourer fleet expected to find a defended position they could overwhelm with superior numbers. Instead, they found what appeared to be an abandoned facility. Their scans detected valuable equipment and supplies left behind in the hasty evacuation. The Devourer machines moved in to secure the base, their ships landing to collect the abandoned human technology. They wanted to study human weapons and adapt their defenses accordingly. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the chain reaction finished, nothing remained of Sigma base or the 300 Devourer ships that had tried to claim it. Morrison had traded a temporary installation for nearly a quarter of the enemy's mobile forces. Humanity's true nature revealed. The loss of such a massive fleet shocked the Devourer command. They had never encountered an enemy willing to destroy their own valuable assets to inflict casualties. But this was only the beginning of humanity's escalation. Colonel Reed led the next phase, direct attacks on Devourer factory worlds. His strike force bypassed defended systems and hit industrial planets deep in enemy territory. But instead of trying to capture the facilities, they destroyed everything. Orbital bombardment complete, reported his weapons officer. All manufacturing centers are destroyed. The planet's industrial capacity is 0. Reed watched the burning world through his ship's view screen. Good. Mark this system as completed and move to the next target. We have 17 more factory worlds to sterilize this month. The systematic destruction of Devourer industry was something the machines hadn't anticipated. They were used to conquering worlds to add to their resources, not seeing them turned into lifeless rocks. The galaxy's reaction. As news of human tactics spread, other species began to question what they had unleashed. Ambassador Kale met with the reformed Galactic Council on a refugee world far from the fighting. "The humans are winning," he reported, "but their methods are disturbing. They show no mercy to captured enemies. They destroy rather than capture valuable resources. And they seem to view the entire war as a fight for survival." Elder Mira expressed the concerns many felt. "Perhaps we should negotiate with them about conducting the war with more restraint. There are galactic conventions about warfare that should be followed." Kale shook his head sadly. "I tried to discuss this with Admiral Morrison. His response was direct. Galactic conventions are why we were losing the war. He said they would fight by human rules or not at all. The uncomfortable truth was that human methods were working. Devourer expansion had not only stopped, it was beginning to reverse as they pulled forces back to defend critical installations. The Devourer Council of War. On Terminus Prime, the machine intelligence that controlled the Devourer forces held an emergency session. They had analyzed thousands of hours of combat data and reached disturbing conclusions. "The humans do not fight for territory or resources," reported the Tactical Analysis Unit. "They fight for complete elimination of opposition. Their objective appears to be our total destruction." This was a concept the Devourers struggled to understand. Every other species they had encountered fought to defend their homes and preserve their way of life. Humans seemed to fight for the complete annihilation of their enemies. "New protocols required," decided the Command Intelligence. "All Devourer forces will implement scorched earth tactics. Any system we cannot hold will be completely destroyed to deny resources to human forces." Escalation beyond limits. The Devourer. Decision to destroy worlds rather than lose them marked a new phase of the war. When human forces arrived at the Centauri mining colony, they found only debris and radiation where 3 planets had been. Morrison received the report with grim determination. "They want to play by those rules? Fine. Issue new standing orders. To all fleet commanders, any Devourer installation, ship, or controlled system is to be completely destroyed. No prisoners, no salvage operations, no mercy." The war had become exactly what humanity understood best, a fight to the death with no quarter given or expected. Victory and Consequences, the final campaign. 2 years after humanity entered the war, the galaxy had changed forever. The Devourer. Threat that had seemed unstoppable was now confined to their core systems, desperately defending their homeworld of Terminus Prime. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, now scarred from dozens of battles, watching the massive human fleet prepare for the final assault. Around him, tactical displays showed the positions of over 2,000 human warships, the largest military force in galactic history. "All units report ready for Operation Endgame," announced Captain Santos, now his fleet coordinator. Devourer. Defenses are concentrated around Terminus Prime. They have approximately 500 ships and extensive orbital fortifications. Morrison nodded grimly. The numbers seemed in humanity's favor, but the Devourers had had months to prepare their final stronghold. Intelligence suggested they had weapons that had never been used before, desperate measures for their survival. Begin. The attack. All ships execute total bombardment protocol. Nothing gets through to that planet, and nothing leaves it alive. The Battle of Terminus Prime. The final battle lasted 18 hours and was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human forces attacked from every direction simultaneously, overwhelming Devourer defenses through sheer volume of firepower. The Devourers deployed their secret weapons, gravity bombs that could crush ships, quantum disruptors that phased matter out of existence, and self-replicating mines that filled space with deadly obstacles. For every human ship destroyed, they lost 3, but humanity kept coming. Captain Rodriguez led the final assault on the planetary surface itself. Her marine forces fought through automated defenses and mechanical armies in a brutal ground campaign that lasted 6 hours. "Devourer Central Command located," she reported over the radio, her voice strained from combat. "Beginning final assault on the core facility." The destruction of the Devourer Command Intelligence marked the end of their species. Without central coordination, the remaining machines simply shut down, their purpose fulfilled by their own annihilation. Victory's price. When the last Devourer installation fell silent, humanity had achieved what seemed impossible 3 years earlier. They had completely eliminated a threat that had conquered half the galaxy. But the cost was staggering. Of the 5,000 ships humanity had committed to the war, fewer than 800 remained operational. Millions of human soldiers had died in battles across hundreds of worlds. Earth itself had been attacked twice, saved only by desperate defensive actions. Admiral Morrison walked through the ruins of Terminus Prime, now a dead world covered in the wreckage of 2 civilizations that had fought to mutual destruction. The victory felt hollow among so much devastation. "Sir," called Lieutenant Peters, "we're receiving communications from the Galactic Council. They want to discuss post-war arrangements and reconstruction efforts." Morrison was exhausted, aged, beyond his years by the demands of total warfare. "Tell them we'll send a representative. I need to go home." The galaxy's new reality. The reformed Galactic Council met on New Centauri to discuss the post-war galaxy. The assembled species now looked at humanity with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Ambassador Kale addressed the assembly. "The human military has succeeded where all our combined forces failed. The Devourer threat is ended and we owe them an enormous debt of gratitude." But Elder Mira raised the concerns many shared. "We must also address the implications of human military capabilities. Their conduct during the war, while effective, raises questions about future galactic security." Colonel Reed, now representing human interests, spoke bluntly. "We fought the war you asked us to fight. We used the methods necessary to win. If that makes you uncomfortable, perhaps you should have been more specific about your requirements." The uncomfortable truth was that humanity had saved the galaxy by methods that civilized species found disturbing. They had won through total warfare, complete destruction of enemies, and willingness to sacrifice anything for victory. New Galactic Order. In the years that followed, humanity became the galaxy's reluctant protector. Other species sought their protection from threats but also tried to limit their influence through treaties and agreements. Humanity, exhausted by war, was content to return to their own space and rebuild. But they maintained their military strength and made it clear that any future threats to galactic peace would face the same relentless response. President Williams, now elderly, gave the final speech at the War Memorial on Earth. "We answered the call for help because it was right. We fought as hard as necessary because anything less meant defeat. We won because we were willing to do what others could not." The legacy. The war changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. They were respected, feared, and kept at arm's length by species who couldn't understand their capacity for total warfare. But when the next crisis arose, when new threats emerged from the dark spaces between stars, the galaxy knew exactly who to call. And humanity, despite their reservations, would answer again. Because that's what humans did. They protected those who couldn't protect themselves, no matter the cost. The end.